It's become almost cliched to open an HTC review with some kind of pessimistic recap of just how far the Taiwanese company has fallen in the past 5 years or so let's gloss over that for now and just say that yes, even though HTC has seen better days, it still knows how to make quality Android phones. After a shaky start to 2017, it eventually launched the U11, a great if underappreciated flagship. And now as the year draws to a close, there's a new model on the horizon, boasting a larger, taller screen, a gigantic battery, and Android Oreo out of the box. I'm Alex from Android Central, and this is our review of the HTC U11 Plus. So with the U11 Plus, HTC joins the 18:9 club, with a taller display more in keeping with current flagship trends. It's not exactly bezel-less, there's still both a forehead and a chin to be seen here, but the borders have been trimmed down significantly from older HTC offerings. From the front, it no longer looks anywhere near as dated as some of its forerunners. Of course, this is still an HTC U phone, and fittingly there's a gorgeous liquid surface curved glass panel around the back, which is every bit as eye-catching as other models in this series. I've been using the black version, which is really more of a reflective gunmetal finish than anything. There's also a really unique translucent colour option that won't be on sale anywhere for another month or so. There are redesigned aluminium sidewalls too, which are reminiscent of the old HTC 10 and as a result more angular and a little easier to hold onto. Not that this phone isn't extremely slippery, mind you. Between the 6-inch display diagonal and the very slick finish of the glass back, you may well want to take advantage of the bundled protective case. Incidentally, the taller screen means the fingerprint sensor now lives around the back of the phone, and HTC has reintroduced on-screen keys to its Android UI. There's a fair amount of heft to this phone, in terms of both size and weight, but I really don't mind that. The U11 Plus feels solid and well made, and just a little bit more grown up than the regular U11, which was trying a bit too hard to be curvy and playful. And unlike just about every other HTC phone, these extra large proportions are filled out by an extra large battery. The front face of the phone is featureless except for the earpiece and a 6-inch Super LCD 6 panel at 2880 by 1440 resolution. I feel like we're settling on this size as the new go-to standard for larger Android phones, and that's great. It works well in the U11 Plus just like it does the Pixel 2 XL or LG V30. The panel itself is attractive if not spectacular. It lacks the awesome daylight visibility of the Note 8 and the punch of OLED in general, but on the whole it looks fine, there are no glaring issues here. It's tuned to DCI-P3 by standard, but you can monkey with colours in the settings if you want to. Under the hood, HTC takes the core specs of the U11 and layers on a few key upgrades. In the UK, 6GB of RAM and 128GB of storage is the standard loadout. In some other places like Taiwan, there's a 4+64 version as well. The battery jumps to a whopping 3930 mAh, putting it in the same league as the Huawei Mate 10, at least in terms of the numbers. The water resistance spec jumps to IP68, and other specs are largely unchanged: Snapdragon 835, microSD expandability, and Quick Charge 3 but no wireless charging. There's still no headphone jack, which I hate having to deal with in every phone that emits it, but alongside the standard 3.5mm dongle in the box, HTC does at least include its pretty great Usonic noise-cancelling earbuds, which can impressively dampen background noise wherever you happen to be. And when you're not using earbuds, a U11-style boom sound hi-fi setup, combining the earpiece speaker with a bottom-firing woofer, provides just about the best on-device playback outside of the few phones that still offer front-facing speakers. Maybe that's a little disappointing. I do feel like HTC probably could have fitted front-facing speakers into this design if it really wanted to. New phone shipping with Oreo is still relatively few and far between, so it's great to see the U11 Plus arriving with Android 8.0 out of the box. HTC's Sense customizations are still around too, and mostly the same as they were on the U11. As Android skins go, this remains a relatively light touch. The most obvious change that hits you in the face, these new Squircle style icons, which honestly I can take or leave. Most other Sense features remain unchanged. Blink feed fills the leftmost home screen panel with news and social updates, and the Sense launcher inherits a couple of fashionable features from other phones, letting you swipe up to the app drawer or down to the notification tray. Unfortunately, these changes don't do much to alleviate the general staleness of some parts of Sense. Many Sense apps haven't changed in years, whether it's the dialer and messages apps largely unchanged from 2015's M9, or the weather animations that date all the way back to 2011's HTC Sensation. The combination of Sense plus Oreo looks fine and is perfectly pleasant to use, but this is far from the visual overhaul that I think HTC's UI could really benefit from. HTC has at least further developed its squeezy Edge Sense feature. More actions in specific apps are now supported, and there's even an admittedly slightly clumsy way to map a squeeze to areas of other apps as well. Also new, HTC's Edge launcher. This is similar to Samsung's Edge panels, giving you a couple of wheels as shortcuts alongside a quick calendar view. It's neat, but not exactly groundbreaking. Personally, I found EdgeSense works pretty well as a camera shortcut. It's really helpful to not have to fumble around to double tap that power button, but in the end I've largely ignored most of the other stuff it can do. In other apps, it's usually easy to just tap the screen as opposed to adjusting your grip and clumsily squeezing. At the same time, Sense Companion, which was useless on the U Ultra and useless on the U11, is just as much of a waste of space on the U11 Plus. HTC's on-device AI thing didn't show me a single piece of useful information in a week of use, and any utility it might offer is undone by occasionally crazy suggestions, like telling me to wake up early for a co-worker's doctor's appointment on another continent. It's tripped up way too often by travel or by shared Google calendars, and it should either be given the engineering work it sorely needs, or it should be scrapped entirely. HTC's software still has the fundamentals down though. It's insanely fast, every bit as performant as Google's Pixel phones, and it doesn't add too much cruft on top of stock Android. To me, that speed and clarity is worth the one or two superfluous features that I can easily disable. Same goes for battery life, where HTC takes advantage of an almost 4000 mAh cell to guarantee a full day, even with heavy use. The only time I needed an evening recharge was in dual SIM mode, using the phone continually for YouTube streaming over LTE, occasional music playback, and social networking. With lighter use, you'll manage a day and a half with ease, probably not a second day though. I still feel like Huawei's Mate 10 gets slightly more mileage out of a similar sized battery. As for screen on time, you're looking at about 7 hours at the high end and 4 at the low end. As always, it depends what you're doing. The U11 Plus's main camera is the exact same hardware found in the standard model, a 12 megapixel Sony sensor with 1.4 micron pixels and optical stabilization behind an f1.7 lens. And like the regular U11, the Plus leans heavily on HTC's HDR boost technology, which helps it capture more color detail in night shots and gather more dynamic range from most scenes in general. It's the closest I've seen another manufacturer come to matching Google's HDR Plus camera from the Pixel 2. Google is still unchallenged when it comes to noise reduction and extreme low-light photography, thanks to that computational edge. Nevertheless, the U11 Plus is a very close competitor, and for my money, it's essentially a coin toss between this and the Huawei Mate 10 for the number 2 spot. As a particular point of strength, HTC's camera is superb at pulling out lots of color detail in night scenes, and unlike the early days of the U11, the camera no longer tends towards overexposing darker scenes either. HDR boost also seems a little quicker than I remember it being on the U11, possibly thanks to software enhancement or the extra couple gigs of RAM. In every other way, this is identical to the camera of the U11. The main thing that you don't get that many competing phones do offer is portrait mode, which may or may not be a big deal for you. Personally, I can live without it. Around the front, an 8 megapixel camera and f2.0 lens aims to up the U11 Plus's selfie game, particularly in darker conditions. I found the results closely matched the very similar setup used in the Google Pixel 2, though obviously without that phone's front-facing portrait mode option. So the clear takeaway for me is that the U11 Plus is probably the flagship HTC should have released 6 months ago. This phone looks more modern than the regular U11, and with a bigger battery, higher specs, a sharper design, and more fleshed out EdgeSense options, it's way more competitive in the market in general. In the UK, its £699 price point, or $629 if you can find it on sale, makes it comfortably more affordable than the Pixel 2 XL. Although it isn't perfect, the U11 Plus makes the strongest case yet for HTC's continued presence in the smartphone market. For the first time in a while, I feel like HTC kinda has its mojo back, at least on the product side. Availability is another question altogether though. If you're in the UK, the only place to buy a U11 Plus is direct from HTC, and in the US there are no launch plans at all. For that reason, it's unlikely this phone will do much to move the needle for the company. But assuming you can buy it, the U11 Plus is a top-notch Oreo-powered flagship with solid construction, a beautiful glass design whether you go mirrored or translucent, and differentiation through clean software, a fantastic camera, and dependable battery life. And for that reason, it's earned a solid recommendation from me. That's it for now. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss our future reviews and other coverage, and head to androidcentral.com for more on the HTC U11 Plus. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.